Hi, everyone. I'm James Protin. I'd like to give a special thank you to our sponsors for the podcast, Candelore's Barking Beauties, with 5 locations throughout the region, and His Place Coffee Community and more here in Menneson for hosting us.
Hi, my name is Kelsey Candelore, owner of Candelore's Barking Beauties, where our salon is your salon. We have 5 convenient locations, no appointment needed. All breeds welcome. Any size dog. We are open Tuesday through Saturday from 8 a.m. till 6 p.m. We have 5 convenient locations: Elizabeth, White Oak, Finleyville, Monongahela, and Irwin. Love to have you visit us.
Welcome, everyone, to the James Protin podcast. I'm your host, James Protin, and we're doing something a little different today. We are on the road. You probably don't recognize the backdrop and the set where we're at. We are actually in the great city, as I'm finding out, of Mount Vernon, New York, and we're sitting here in the mayor's office in City Hall. And joining me today is Mayor Shawyn Patterson-Howard and Damani Bush, the Commissioner of the Department of Public Works, as well as my colleague, Marvin Williams. We've been here all day, and we've toured this great city and seen a lot of things, the good and the bad, and we've been suitably impressed. This is a vibrant and thriving city that has some issues that we'll address here shortly, but what an amazing place. I've gotten an education here today, and I'm thrilled to be here. And Mayor, thank you so much for having us here and for your hospitality and welcoming us to your great city.
Well, thank you so much for coming. We're really excited to have GPI and Jackson Tull and your team, here to tour our city and talk about infrastructure. Wonderful,
wonderful. Damani, thank you. You certainly have your work cut out for you here.
Yeah, it's tough, but infrastructure needs are something that's going on throughout the country. Here in Mount Vernon, we have a plethora of problems, but we are addressing them. It's been a challenge. I was actually appointed as the commissioner back in August of 2020.
Okay.
And since then, we've been hitting the ground running. It's a lot of funding problems, but we are addressing them day by day.
Right. Excellent. And Marvin, thank you. It's always great to be with you, my friend. Okay. And we can't wait to hear your perspective on all of not only the infrastructure issues facing cities like Mount Vernon, but also how the infrastructure bill coming out of Washington, D.C. can potentially help these cities.
That's for sure. One of the highlights of the president's program, now called the IIJA for short, is that it focuses on cities that are not the 10 top biggest cities in the country. Focuses on cities of this size. This city of about 100,000 in real numbers, regardless of what the census says, only a few blocks from the Bronx.
Right.
Deserves historic city in terms of people of color. Historic. One of the first suburbs, exurbs. But the people who come from this place have been incredible. And we want to see that you get your shot with infrastructure. So we'll talk about that a little bit. Okay.
Sure.
Absolutely.
So, Mayor, can you give us a little bit of background on your city and where we are right now and just.
Absolutely. Mount Vernon was founded in, we have 2 different dates.
Yeah, it's 2 different dates.
We have 2 different dates. So we'll go with 1892.
Okay.
We were East Chester, and then we became incorporated as the city of Mount Vernon in 1892. We were founded by John Stevens, and this was really one of the first planned cities in the United States. They brought 1,500 families who were in Connecticut and New York City, and brought them to Mount Vernon, and they split up the community into different parcels, and so that's why we say it's the first planned city. Right now, Mount Vernon, as Mr. Williams said, we're about 100,000 people, while the census has us listed as 75,000. We are 62% African American, 24% Hispanic Latino, and 14% white and Asian. And so we are a majority minority community. Our average median income here in the city is about $60,000 a year per household. We have those who fall below that, but we have those who are way above that. Westchester County is one of the richest counties in the country.
Yes.
And so our average median income is about 40% less than that of the county. This is, as it's been said, I believe this is a historic community. We've had, who's come from Mount Vernon? You've had Art Carney.
There you go.
We've had Dick Clark come from Mount Vernon. Denzel Washington
Denzel
was born
Washington.
and raised here. Felicia Rashad lives here now. We've had the Shabazz family. They've lived here and they still live here. This is where the family settled after Malcolm X was killed. We've had everyone from Bella Abzug to musicians, athletes, artists, scientists. So Mount Vernon is a very vibrant community. In the last 20 years, we've seen our fair share of challenges, but we're working with our county and our state and our federal partners and public-private partnerships to really look at how we can take advantage of once-in-a-lifetime infrastructure investments to really cure some of our challenges and put our city on a new trajectory.
Right, and it is amazing, and it is a very vibrant community, and it's a very proud community.
Yes.
And one thing we've seen as we've gone around the city today is that there's nobody walking around saying, woe is me. Not only from your team, but also from the residents. I mean, every place where we went with you, it was like, you're like a rock star, right? I mean, it's people coming up and so it's what you're doing is very well received, but this is a very proud city, and I love seeing that because your struggles are obvious.
Yes.
Right? And you, young man, Damani, I mean, with the team that you have, as far as numbers, right? What you're doing out in the community, and you're on the front lines. You're interacting with folks, and a lot of times at their worst, right? They have a basement, 3 feet of sewage in their basement, and you have to go talk to those folks.
Yeah, it's a challenge every day. We have on our team we have 149 DPW workers, but the responsibility is very big. We have our sewer system, we have our traffic infrastructure, we have our highway maintenance, which is our sidewalks, we have street sweeping, our garbage collection. There's a lot of things, our city-owned buildings, there's a lot of things that we're handling every day and trying to juggle and make sure that we are responding. Unfortunately, we've just been dealt a bad hand where a lot of things were neglected for many years, and now everything's on the table and we have to deal with it. But we have been working tirelessly to address these issues and not run from them anymore and kick them down the road.
Why don't we go through what some of those things that have been neglected? You're not like a lot of other cities. First of all, let's say that clearly. Not like a lot of other places. Infrastructure has gotten sort of a sidetracked in America for a long time, and now we're all excited about it and all moving forward. Mr. Mayor, Ms. Mayor, and you, Mr. Bush, why don't you tell us what you think are your top infrastructure issues?
Well, number one is our sewer system. Our sewer system, we have over 185 miles of of sewers throughout our city. It's a 100-year-old system, and it's built from clay section pipes, clay section pipes. And every day they're deteriorating. So, this system was installed many years ago when the population wasn't what it is now. So there's a lot of more wear and tear on it every day. And, like I like to compare it to say we're playing whack-a-mole, where we're trying to, solve one problem and then another one just pops up. Right. So that's a daily, challenge for us. But that alone is, it's estimated to cost a $200 million job, and that's just guesstimates right now. We don't really know until we actually start uncovering and digging up the streets to see what's really out there. So that's number one on our list right now. Of course, is our city-owned buildings as well too. We have 13 facilities where they've just been neglected for many years, and these are where our police department work, our firefighters, our DPW workers, and they're working in these environments every day with the roof leaking or windows not opening, and the HVAC systems are not working. So there's so many different things that we're challenged with, but we are trying to address them.
And those are the same buildings, like we said, not only where our staff work, but this is where we have our senior citizen programs, our youth bureau programs, providing programs after school. This is where we service our residents. These are the same municipal buildings that we're working in are the places that we're serving our residents, and oftentimes many of our most vulnerable residents. And so we want to be able to provide basic city services and an atmosphere that is conducive and helps people feel proud of their city and is a place that they want to come to receive services. So you said our sewers, our municipal buildings, and I think the third major infrastructure issue that we have here are well, I'm going to put both of them together, are our bridges. We have 2 bridges that have been closed. We have 4 that have recently been replaced, and we're really excited about that. But we have 2 bridges that still need to be done, and our municipal parking structures.
Right.
So, right across from City Hall, you can see exposed rebar. You have staircases that you can't use. You have elevators that, are dead, and lighting. We're using temporary lighting throughout a lot of the parking lots so that people can come and go.
Right.
And these are all things that are supposed to be handled by the city.
Yes.
Just going down the line, he said municipal buildings, we have had to condemn a fire station and our city's armory, which is over 100 years old, like I said, where we provide services to our seniors and
Right.
also to many of our children and residents who have physical disabilities.
And it's a beautiful historic building. I mean, it
Beautiful
really
historic buildings, yes.
is. And you had to relocate that fire station, so it wasn't just a matter of just closing it, in finding a suitable place for firing. I'm assuming pumper trucks, that's not a Hyundai. That's a big vehicle to try to find some place to adequately to store it, because again, you can't keep fire apparatus just parking on the side of the street.
So, right now we're in the process of building a temporary structure to house the fire engines. We've been able to locate a place to relocate the firemen and, kitchens, sleeping quarters and things of that nature, day room. But as you said, the fire engines can't just go outside. And
Right.
so between mafia blocks and an external steel structure that is going to be built over the next few days, that is where we will house
Excellent.
the fire engines. And it's taken much longer than we expected it to take. Why?
Sure.
Supply chain issues. It took us
Right.
months to be able to find and secure an external structure, and then it took several months for it to arrive, and all of the different pieces to arrive, and just, being able to secure those things in this
Sure.
time. And as you look also at, cities have received American Rescue Plan money. We know that the infrastructure bill is out, but the cost of everything right now is going up because
Sure.
of supply chain issues. Now we've entered into a war, and there's, wartime. Delayed time lengths on everything, and just inflation. And so the things that you were even hoping to be able to get done with your American Rescue Plan monies, as well as potential monies from the infrastructure bill, are going to be cut down
Sure.
some because of pricing, and it's a challenge, but we're still excited.
Sure.
We're excited.
And you've been hit hard by supply chain issues, right? I mean, I think I heard today that you ordered several police cars and garbage trucks and just municipal type vehicles that are, you're way out behind the curve on delivery of those things.
Yeah, we ordered 7 new sanitation trucks last year, and so far we only received 2 of them. Because at the same time, every other municipality, they received the same money too. So everyone's scrambling over the same
Right.
pot, and then on top of that, you have supply chain issues. So
Right.
it's a compounding problem.
And I think we ordered those things in about August and September,
Yeah.
so we were expecting to get them in January. We ordered 20 police cars, and they were expected to come in January and February, and right now they're telling us that because of the computer chip issues,
Right.
that they may not even be, put together, and they're not going to start building them until May. So we've received money. You have a lot of things that you need to replace, but supply chain issues and
It's
just
difficult,
equipment is a
right.
challenge, yes.
One of the things we noticed today in visiting the various neighborhoods and various facilities, as Jim said, was how positive the people appear. And obviously, Madam Mayor, when they see you, they ought to high five and everything else. I got a feeling from the workers. What have you done to infuse them with the spirit that we can do?
This will probably sound crazy. I think that our staff are some of the most committed, resilient staff you're going to find anywhere in the country. They have a lot of grit. They've gone without contracts since 2018. So all of our staff has been working without a contract. Our police, our fire, our Teamsters, our civil service office workers have all gone without contracts and raises since 2018. They've gone without the equipment that they need on a daily basis to do their work. And the only thing that we've really been able to do is instill hope. When they're using old garbage trucks or plows to go out and pick up garbage or to plow the streets. If there's a storm, I'm out there in my truck. It could be 2 o'clock in the morning. Damani's out in their truck. We're doing lives on Facebooks, giving shout outs to our staff as they go around, as we had to shut down garbage collection for a few days last year in 98-degree weather. And we were able to get loaner trucks from New York City, from Yonkers, and the state of New York sent some trucks in.
That's
Again,
excellent.
we got out and we ran around and we encouraged our residents, go out, give water to our workers, encourage our firefighters, encourage our police officers, So we're working under very, very difficult situations. We came into office here in January of 2020. Of course, with a bright, new, energetic, we can change the world, and COVID hit us squarely in the face.
Yeah.
But as Mike Tyson says, you always have a plan until you get punched in the face.
Exactly.
Right? And so COVID was that big punch in the face that we received, but we continued to just try and pour into, no money, no equipment, no answers, but really just go out and encourage the staff and let them know that this was not just about the elected leaders or the appointed leaders of the city being able to change the city, that we were going to need them. And we're trying to do the same thing with our residents. We want them to be educated on the challenges that we have. How do we involve them? How do we empower them to be part of the transformation of Mount Vernon? We're not doing it around them, and we're not doing it for them. We're doing it with them.
I have 2 questions. First of all, how did you find this guy?
How did I find Damani? So Damani was the principal clerk under about 6 different DPW commissioners. So he was always the bridesmaid and never the bride.
Right.
Because Damani, how old are you? What are you, 33? So Damani is 33. And when I was working here years ago, I saw him working hard. There was never a meeting with a commissioner of DPW that was had without them calling Damani into. It was like Damani was an appendage to every commissioner that he worked under. No one had a meeting without Damani. And so, when I became mayor and I had my first opportunity, I made him commissioner. And there were people who said, how are you going to make someone, and he was 31 at that time. How are you going to make a 31-year-old commissioner of the Department of Public Works that really is overseeing your infrastructure, your city buildings, and has so many challenges? I said, because I've seen him do the work.
Right.
And if we do not invest in our young professionals, why would they stay here? And we've just filmed a national documentary about some of our sewer and our infrastructure challenges here in the city of Mount Vernon. And as my husband and I and my daughters were watching it at home the other day, my husband said, someone's going to come and steal Damani. And, he was a well-hidden secret, and now he's going to get national attention.
It's out there now.
But the thing is, if we're not investing in our young professionals, if we're not giving them opportunities, we continue to experience drain of our human capital in our communities because we don't give them an opportunity. When I ran for mayor at 51 years old, I was told over and over by people that you have to stay in your place and you have to wait your turn. And so, is my turn, does it come at 60? Does it come at 70? And I could not have that same mentality when it comes to our leadership team. So we have a leadership team that has a diversity of age, and we really provide opportunity. Everyone can grow, but not everyone will develop, and you'll only develop when you're put under pressure. And he has a lot of pressure on his shoulders.
That's a quick story. When she did, I think we had the conversation, and she was like, "Are you ready? Are you ready?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I got it. I'm sure." And the next day, a hurricane came. And the entire city was underwater, and I'm like, what did I get myself into?
And you raised your hand for that. I'll do it. I got this.
I said he had been elevated to deputy commissioner a few months before I became mayor. And I said, Damani, there's a big difference between number 2 and number 1. Number 2 assists. Number 1 carries the weight and the pressure on their shoulders, on their back. And he says, oh, I'll let you know. And then he finally said, I'm ready. And literally
The next day.
it was Hurricane Isaias
Yep.
came, and hundreds of trees were knocked down, and power was knocked out to about 70%
that's the best
of
way
the
to try it
city.
out.
Yeah, it's been baptism by fire,
Right.
but he has risen to the occasion, and we're just excited about his leadership and his commitment.
Well, he is a leader, and your team respects you, and they can see that. And that's very obvious. But real quick, before we get into another question, tell me a little bit about, are you a Mount Vernon native son? Are you a Mount
Yes.
Vernon guy? So you born and
So I was
raised
born
here?
and raised in Mount Vernon. I've been here my entire life now. My family is home raised here too. I started in DPW in 2009. I started as a seasonal laborer. Then I became a clerk, and then principal clerk, and then deputy commissioner, and now commissioner. So I kind of climbed through the ranks to, show my worth.
That's a great story.
Seasonal
Good
is
for
a
you.
part-time.
Yeah, I was
Right.
part-time. Yeah.
Right.
And I think like Madam Mayor says too, it's the job is the job and the work is the work, but it's the true love for the city that keeps us going. And I think with our workers and our residents, that when they see us out and about and they see us boots on the ground and we're really getting it done, that gives them the hope that, okay, things
huge.
are changing. Yeah, so
That's huge.
That's one of the things that I've always instilled in me. I was a former Razorback as well too. I played football at Memorial Field when I was younger. So to see
Okay.
it being rebuilt now and being a part of the project is really
That's going to be an
big.
amazing facility.
Yeah,
I mean, it really
yeah.
is.
So-
That's
About a $40 million project that's, being done by the county of Westchester.
So it's really, I love it. As much as it's frustrating, but I love seeing things getting done, and then to see the residents to solve their problems, it really, it keeps me going every day. But it's a lot that we have to do, but we're working.
It's good. Well, you can tell you love this city. And that's I agree with you. That's 99% of the battle right there, right? The work will be there. The work will take care of itself.
Right.
Your team will fuck. If you love it, Memorial Stadium, Memorial. Tell us a little bit about that. You mentioned something interesting. I think I picked up on it. You mentioned Joe Green.
Yes.
That'll resonate with our, just because we're Pittsburgh based, we're Steelers now. So tell us a
Okay.
little bit about that.
So, Memorial Stadium, it's a veteran stadium, and Memorial Field was the crossroads of the community for
Okay.
Mount Vernon. It is where we came together for football games, for concerts, for
Right.
cultural events, track meets, all type of sporting events. It's where I marched in the band. It's where I grew up running track. It's where the Mean Joe Green commercial was done with, I think it was Coca-Cola.
Coca-Cola. I did not know that.
So it was the Coca-Cola commercial with Mean Joe Green, and he's coming up in the out of the locker room and through the tunnel, and the little guy goes, yeah, and he gives him the Coke, and it's
Yeah,
like,
right.
Mean Joe Green. Michael Jackson has performed there. Parliament Funkadelic. We've had the Black Rodeo
No
come
kidding.
through, and so it's been closed. The last high school football game was played there, I believe, in 2007. 2007, and Malcolm Clark, who's my deputy chief of staff, he was on that championship
on that
football team at that time. And so to see Memorial Field come back online, and it will be online before the end of this year, is just going to be amazing. We've had, 2 generations of young people who've grown up in this community and don't know what Memorial Field means. And so, like Damani said, we are a city, but at the same time, we are a small town. We are 4 square miles,
Right.
and so we have big city numbers, we have big city challenges, but we are very towny and villagey almost in a way, and so far as the field. And so Damani said he was a Razorback, Malcolm was a Razorback, some of our other leaders and young leaders were Razorbacks here in the city, and that's the Pop Warner Football League, right?
Is
And
that
so we still, we still go back
Still
to,
go-
I
yeah.
played on this Pop Warner team, and
That's community. That's how you know you have a community.
That's
when
how you know
have folks at our age that are still talking about Pop Warner football,
Yes.
right? That's how you know you're in a community.
And so, I go to the Pop Warner football practices now. They're at Brush Park, or they're behind one of our schools, because we don't have a stadium for them to practice in. And for the last 5-6 years, or really the last 10 years, they float around and use just other places for their home games. And so when I go down and I tell them, I was like, Memorial Field is coming back. You guys are going to be in Memorial Field for the next season. And they look at you and they go, what's Memorial Field? And that's devastating.
Yeah,
That's pretty heartbreaking that, like you said, a generation, 2 generations of young people don't know something that was so foundational and fundamental to our growth and our development here.
Right.
It's the place where you met up with your friends. It was where you turned your tassel on your graduation
Exactly.
cap. It's where, our cultural events happen. And so we're so excited that that will be coming back online and that the young people will have an opportunity to see it. And just, pivoting for a second, but staying with that, I have a 94-year-old aunt who showed up at Memorial Field 4 o'clock every morning and walked around the track and did her 5 miles, or walked from Memorial Field to New Rochelle. And she's 94. She broke her hip not too long ago, and she's in a rehabilitation center. But when Memorial Field reopens, I'm going to walk a victory lap with her around
There you
that,
go.
because she, it was part of her everyday routine.
Yeah.
And so, again, to see a city asset come back online for the
Right.
community, it's not just about sports, it's about health. Because walking is the cheapest, healthiest thing that you can do. And so this is where people can go and walk and run and exercise, and kids can play. And again, it's green space also.
Sure.
It makes it part of community.
Right.
So we're in your office.
Yes.
Which is beautifully set up and done. You talked about finding furniture in resale places and that thing of nature. But this building has other kinds of connotations for you. Tell us the history of your father and this building.
Oh, my grandfather.
Grandfather, I'm sorry.
So my great-grandfather, Edward H. Patterson, was born here in the city of Mount Vernon in 1905. And he was the first person of color to work here in City Hall. He was sworn in, I guess, back in the 1930s, and he worked here in the building. He started out as a porter. And so he swung a mop and swept floors and wiped down walls right in the basement, and he moved up to become the elevator operator. He volunteered as an auxiliary police officer, and then became, as his paperwork says, said deputy sheriff in Westchester County. And so he raised us to be true Mount Vernonites, to love our community, to serve. And so my entire life has been one of service to my community, whether I was a patrol,
Sure.
in elementary school, wearing the
Right.
sash, making sure kids didn't run, to serving in student government in school, to, moving back here after I graduated from Howard University and becoming a PTA member and a PTA president, to a Girl Scout troop leader, to running the YMCA, to starting the drug court, to doing those things. It was always about service to Mount Vernon. Excuse me. And I never, ever imagined that I would become mayor. I actually ran from politics all of my life because I've been very much a person who's about social justice. My education was as a social worker at Howard University, and then I went on to get my master's in public administration and urban policy and development from John Jay as well as Hunter.
Sure.
And so working in the public sector is something that I've always done. Understanding that the crossroads between elected office, civic work, the not-for-profit community, the faith-based and the business community was important. And I've worked in every sector, but never saw myself as an elected until young people like Damani and Malcolm and others here in the city, many who knew me from being the director of the Y, because they played midnight basketball there, said, Mount Vernon has had many fathers, and now we need a mother. We're at the place in the time in the history of our community when we need a mother, and you're the mother of Mount Vernon. And they
That's
asked me to run, and so having been
As soon as the word was out, I was like,
having been compelled by the young people, I love them and I want to choke them all at the same time because it absolutely shifted my life. But there's no greater honor than when the young people in the community have confidence in you.
Sure.
And it wasn't just the young people; it was the seniors. Being mayor of your hometown, where you've grown up, where you're a fifth generation Mount Vernonite, and when there's been 2 generations after that, where my great-grandparents are buried behind the only national landmark that we have here in St. Paul Cemetery. is such an honor to be able to give back. So it's interesting because you're either known as Sharon's daughter, Eddie and Liz's granddaughter, or Nia's mama.
Yeah, there you go.
And now you get to be mayor.
Right.
But people know you from different places.
Sure.
And at 53 and as mayor, there's still people say, now I know you mayor, but I grew up with your mama, baby, so. and that's what makes it small town.
Yeah,
Right.
I hear you. Damani, I was interesting you follow through. I watched you with the people here in town. You're doing a lot of hands-on remediation of problems.
Right.
And you get to know everybody, the community. Because you're from the community, do you think that has a big impact on how people receive you? They know that you're one of them?
Yeah, it's very challenging sometimes because, for instance, if there's a pothole somewhere, they'll call my mother and say, call Damani and make sure he gets his pothole fixed. But I think that relationship with the community, it makes it better. It's always good conversations, and they understand me, and I understand them as well too. And they've seen me grow up, so they know my personality. And like I said, I know a lot of people in the community as well too. And I think that personal touch of trying to get things done makes me want to get it done even more, because it's like it's not just random people that I'm working for. These are my family members. Mount Vernon is just one big family, so we're all connected somehow. So to get the job done for them, that's what keeps me going.
So did they hit you at church?
Yeah, sometimes. It's tough. Like I said, I get the calls from my mom, from everybody, and they have my personal phone number. So it is what it is, though. Like I love it.
Do you ever you talked about your nephew today that you spend time with.
Yeah.
Do you ever take him on any of your rounds, or does he know what you do?
Yeah, he loves it. He thinks I'm the best police officer in the world because my truck is the actual police car. But he's like, I want to go in the car. Or last year when he had his birthday party during COVID, we did a motorcade.
We did a motorcade.
And he loves fire trucks, so we put him on a fire truck. And
That's very cool.
Yeah, it was like a great time for him. So he loves it as well.
Yeah,
very
that's
cool.
Good. So let's talk about infrastructure a little bit more here. The IIJA is going to produce about 1.2 trillion, not all of it going to infrastructure, but quite a bit of it in infrastructure. More for roads and streets than for water. But here's what the Wall Street Journal claims. There'll probably be another 1.2 and 1.5 trillion of financing from states and counties and cities.
Yes.
And another maybe $1 or $2 trillion coming from private financing. A lot of work is going to be out there. It's going to be competition is going to be tough. What about homegrowing firms that from in this area, in the neighborhood, who can do the work? I know you have a very strong feeling about equity, about using minority-owned firms. Talk to us a little bit about that, if you will.
So when it comes to increasing the capacity of local firms to become involved in this work, that's definitely a priority. Just as much as it's a priority for us to get the work done, we want to make sure that we're building generational wealth, that monies are being recycled in our community. And so as we look at projects and as we look to put projects out and lead them, we are speaking with the different organizations and even our funders and saying to them, we need you to do job training programs. Not just the flaggers, not just the OSHA workers, but really working with us to help create and build engineers and fund engineers. Damani is going back and he's going to finish his degree. And that's happening. We've had these conversations. So we've been working with Nrdc, which is the National Resource Defense Council. And everyone would think that Nrdc would be one of our enemies because of our environmental impacts of some of the things that have happened in the community. But they're saying we identify passionate young people in your community and we want to help get them to go back to school and be a part of this change.
Awesome.
And as we're speaking to GPI, as we're speaking to Jackson and Tull, as we're speaking to other companies throughout the area, we're talking about these job training programs, because what we know is the African American Mayors Association did a study, and we know that about 60% of the jobs are going to be lost in the next 20 years due to automation. And so we want to make sure that we are reskilling and that we are upskilling our workforce. Because if we're not doing that, then we could invest in the infrastructure of Mount Vernon, but if we're not investing in the human infrastructure,
Exactly.
the jobs, the mental
Exactly.
and emotional wellness, education, then our community is going to be lost. It's going to be very hard to attract high-paying companies and corporations
Right.
to want to settle in Mount Vernon if our education system is not preparing a workforce that is going to attract those type of communities and companies.
That's the first thing they'll look for, is available workforce. right?
Absolutely.
Available
They're
skilled
looking
workforce
for the
that's trained.
skilled
Yep.
workforce that is here. So, that was part of the president's Build Back Better, his human infrastructure bill. And so
Sure.
we're really looking closely to see how they can revive different parts of that. I'm an HBCU grad. I'm a Howard University alum. We have a very big push to help some of our young people go to HBCUs. Look, we
Sure.
support education wherever it is, but there's a different level of grit. There's a different level of giving back to your community
Sure.
that we see from our students who are going to those colleges. And so we really want to partner, and we want to make sure that our residents are pumped and primed for everything from green infrastructure jobs that are going to come online to traditional infrastructure jobs like sewers and wastewater and lead pipe replacement, things of that nature, streets. We had, like we said, Damani started out as a seasonal. He started out
Right.
as a seasonal, but now he's the commissioner of the Department of Public Works. And so what do you say to a young person who's starting out as a seasonal now at $15 an hour?
Right.
That he went from a seasonal to commissioner in 12 years.
Sure.
Now, that's not everyone's path, but there's opportunity in the midst of that. For if you become involved in your community, if you get educated, if you're willing to be mentored, then we're willing to find ways to invest in you as a community and work with our partners to invest in you so that you can be, again, part of the change, part of the solution. We don't want to gentrify our community. We want to revitalize our
Right.
community, and that is our focus. That is our commitment to our residents here.
One of the things I noticed today when we talked about, you were talking earlier, Madam Mayor, about about some of the workforce, some of the seasonals, giving people second chances. You've got people on in that crew who, like all of us, have had issues in their lives early on and who are now coming back getting a shot at it. And I tell you, I was really impressed with the quality of that group. Tell me a little bit about that part of your program.
Yeah, they are, I like to call them the muscle of Mount Vernon. They really go out there and get the job done. These guys work through all weather conditions. They pick up over 30,000 tons of garbage every year, which is the second highest in Westchester County. So, and that's equivalent to 2 Brooklyn bridges. So each worker right now is picking up about 500,000 pounds of garbage every year. And that's something that, we strive to get them to work harder and understand and make sure that they're taking care of their families and try to think ahead too. Don't just think of it as, just a garbage man or something like that,
Right.
but really take it serious as a professional career, because it is growth in it. And I try to use my path and show them that it's a prime example of that. It can happen. They just have to take it serious and want it. They do a remarkable job though, especially with the cars they've been dealt. From the trucks not being working, the facility that they work in, they really go out there and get it done. And the guys that are being trained now, we're doing additional training actually. We're going to start it probably within the next month or so for our driver safety with New York State DOT to try to get these guys to understand the rules and regulations of the road, because being a DPW worker is a top 5 dangerous job in America.
It is, very much
And a
so.
lot of times people don't really understand that, but the things that they have to endure and go through on a daily basis,
Right.
it's very dangerous, and it keeps the city running though. So in terms of training, yeah, we're gonna keep pushing them to make sure that they train properly and learn a lot more as well too.
And we want to make sure, that our frontline workers on every level, jobs like police and fire and DPW, those are young jobs.
Right.
Right.
Your body is
Right.
worn down by those jobs. And so, constantly pushing them to understand administration and add to their education. So when you can no longer sling a garbage bag,
Right.
Sure.
that you can sit in the office and do the administrative piece and run the department, and
Sure.
and that's very important. So again, it's about investing in the human infrastructure here in Mount Vernon, and giving our residents really an opportunity to be part of the transformation, or as we call maybe the flipping of Mount Vernon, and not flipping for others, but really turning
Sure.
over Mount Vernon and allowing it to be
Sure.
much more prosperous.
Sure. I was absolutely amazed at how clean the city is.
Yes.
How clean the city streets are, how free of graffiti it is. There's just a attitude here
Right.
that we pick up, and it must be coming from you and your forebears. Since you're both children from the area, I'll give your mothers and fathers the credit.
Look, we have the challenges, and it's so funny because when our residents see that, they're going to say, "Oh no, there's graffiti. Oh no, there's dirt." And a lot of it is based on the comparison of where we are.
Sure.
Right? Like I said, our median income is 40% less than that of the rest of our county. Sure. And so when you look at some of the other communities around us that have been developed, that have been invested in, Yonkers, just, probably I don't know if it's $1 billion, but Lionsgate just built major studios over in Yonkers, and hotels and convention centers and things like that are being built around us. And Mount Vernon missed out probably on the last 2 cycles of development for about the last 20 years.
Right.
But we are preparing to catch up. And for us, it's not just about what we're building on top of the ground. For us, what we're putting under the ground, like we said, rebuilding the foundation and the bones of this community is just as critical to me right now as building a nice, pretty, shiny building. Shiny buildings are okay, but if the sewer's not working, if your gas and electric are not operating,
That infrastructure is your
stormwater,
foundation.
that infrastructure is the
That's what you build
foundation.
on. That's what you build on, and you can take, and I know you guys have a program that you can combine everything together. It's the dig once, right?
Yes.
The dig once program. But at the end of the day, what you're doing there is actually the major, number one, most important economic development tool or activity that you guys have, and that is upgrading, replacing, rehabilitating your infrastructure.
Well, I'm going to need to hire you when it's time for me to run again next year. And I
got you.
Because, that is the challenge.
Right.
It is.
That is the challenge. Everyone wants to see things done overnight. And they don't realize that the work that we've done in the first 2 years of my administration, and probably for the next 2 years of this administration, is going to have a lot to do with the infrastructure.
It
It's
has to.
going to deal with the built environment that we
Sure.
cannot. The other communities around us, surrounding us, have invested in their infrastructure. And so, yes, they're prepared for lots of new pretty developments in hotels and conference centers and things of that nature. But we are in startup mode. We're restarting. We are retooling, and we're rebuilding, but most of the building that we have to do right now is underground, and things that are not sexy, like sewers and tunnels and bridges and things of that nature. But, we were in a meeting. We were in a meeting a few weeks ago when we heard about the bridge collapse in Pittsburgh.
Sure.
And that was a C-rated bridge. Right? We have F-rated
We
bridges.
saw a lot worse bridges today than that one. And honestly, you guys are dealing with real world dangerous stuff every day. And I said this to you today, just a couple of the actions that you've recently taken. And you mentioned closing the armory, and we didn't get inside the armory, but closing the fire station, okay? And the couple of bridges that we looked at that you closed. You literally saved lives by doing that. You have literally saved lives. And that may sound a little melodramatic to some people who didn't look at that infrastructure, but you guys have literally saved lives. And I have to tell you, you're the first public works director that I've met in 40 years that does stakeouts.
Oh yeah, that's what.
Stakeouts.
Yeah, we do
I love that when you said that.
Yeah.
You said it kind of as a matter of fact, but that was, and again, that's the kind of stuff that is protecting the residents of this city and keeping people safe. And, the fact that your firemen were functional out of that fire station, because you just recently closed it, right? And that's just that again speaks to the resilience of this city and these people.
Yeah, my stakeouts are they're fun, but it goes back to the passion and the love that I have for the community, and I don't want anyone coming into our community and feeling that they can take advantage of it. So that's one of the reasons that I do. We're out there at 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, responding to calls or whatever's going on, just to make sure that the residents understand and feel that we are taking this serious and we're protecting them, because that's our jobs. And that's
So you have to explain what the stakeouts are.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. So the stakeouts, there's certain things. Like, for instance, with trucks going over the bridges, sometimes we would just wait and just see, because, the bridges, we would put the tonnage signs up, but trucks would still try to take advantage and drive over them. So we would make sure that we catch them. Last year, we actually caught someone dumping grease and oil into one of our sanitary lines. So what we did was we set up a little booby trap in one of the manholes, and we set it there probably on a Monday or Tuesday, whatever. Then a few days later, I had the crew. I said, go back and just check and see if it's there. And they went back, and then I said, they seen that it was filled up to the top, and we had a little camera and everything set up, and we said, we got him. And then when we finally got him, we made a public, notice about it to let other people know that we're not taking this anymore. This is not going to happen in our community. So it's
Good for you.
It's fun at the same time too.
It is, because it's infuriating when you have a crumbling sewer system,
Right.
And you have businesses that choose to discharge of oil down into the sanitary lines. We show up lights and sirens, because that's a criminal action. It's a criminal action against our community and against the environment as well, and we take it very seriously. And we do Facebook Lives. People might say, well, that's dramatic. Well, sometimes when people feel like they've gotten away with things for such a long
they
time,
just keep
you
going.
have to embarrass
Keep
them,
going.
right? So it's kind of like a shame.
Right.
No one likes a perp walk, and
More than dramatic, it's powerful.
it's powerful, and we have the DEC in the state of New York, the Division of Environmental Conservation has been working very closely with us, and they'll come down and they'll write tickets. We're doing that all throughout the city, and it's not just big oil companies, it's your repair shops, your auto repair shops,
Sure.
who are discharging of all type of chemicals into neighborhoods. So it's a constant grind of changing the culture of a city where the exception has become the rule.
Yes.
And that's what we're dealing with. So we're not dealing with years of deferred maintenance. We're also dealing with years of no enforcement. I can't say little enforcement, but very, very little, no enforcement at all. And so it's helping people to understand that we're not taking it anymore. We are restoring pride in our community. Damani and a team of our leaders from across the community started a Love My City campaign. And that's a project that we were doing with Harvard University and Bloomberg around innovation. And it's not just about putting garbage cans and garbage receptacles out, because you can put 500 garbage receptacles out and someone can drop litter on the ground right next to it.
Sure.
It's really about instilling the value. We have to move away from, oh, I live in the hood, back to this is my neighborhood. This is my neighborhood. This is where my children play. This is where my grandmother lives. And your parents told you when you were growing up, when I don't care what they do in their house, but when they come to my house,
That's exactly right.
And so that's what we're doing. Let's move from a hood mentality back to a neighborhood mentality.
Absolutely.
And when you come to our block, this is how you're going to conduct yourself. I don't know what you do on your block, but we're kind of starting with a rock my block and love my city.
Now, Madam Mayor and Mr. Commissioner, you guys are very, very good about down-to-earth, hands-on. Let's take it up a notch, okay?
Let's go.
Okay. You're in the financial capital of the world, and you have financial needs to get this done. You're both very sophisticated and very smart. And I guess the opportunity here exists. I think, as you agree, as you said, Mount Vernon has been passed over. You got to catch up for two decades. Are you willing to get knock the heads together to get what you need?
Absolutely. I tell people never, my line is this, never get confused by the pumps and the pearls, because I will put on the Timbs and go and get it done. And that's what we do.
Right.
So we're speaking to private investors. We're speaking to county, state, and federal government. I have the proud privilege of serving as the second vice president right now of the African American Mayors Association.
Excellent.
I sit on United States Conference of Mayors, commissions. We are involved with National Wildlife Federation and Nrdc. We're speaking to the Department of Transportation. We're speaking to the EPA. We're working with HUD. We're working with a lot of the federal organizations, the Department of Justice. We're working with Patriot Strategies Group out of Washington, D.C., and different lobbying organizations and strategy organizations to have the crucial conversations about how do you tap into the money. And one of the things we had about a month ago, a little more than a month ago, the African American Mayors Association, we had our board meeting in Washington, D.C., and quite a few of the federal departments came and sat down and spoke with us. We said, look, we were very proud to stand on the White House lawn and be there and participate as the president signed the Biden infrastructure bill. But none of that will mean anything if he's not standing in communities that look like ours, that are black and brown, and we're doing ribbon cuttings. Ribbon cuttings on roads, ribbon cuttings on bridges, ribbon cuttings over boreholes and sewer systems that are being placed.
All of it.
New businesses. Infrastructure. You cannot do economic development if your infrastructure is not strong within your community. And so all of these things are priorities. I said that ribbon cut, that signing on that day is historic. But what will be historic and what is going to be required to change the quality of life of the residents in our community is making sure that the system is designed whereas those monies flow from the federal government to the state government to the communities that need them most. And that's why we continuously remind our state representatives as well as our federal representatives about the EJ40. Projects, and that means 40% of federal and state dollars are supposed to go to environmental justice communities that have been under-resourced or have been negatively impacted by governmental decisions in the past that didn't allow equity to come to communities like ours.
Yeah, just and on DPW's behalf on that, like one of the things that we're doing right now is the data equals dollars, right? So one of the things that we've been doing is trying to take this bird's eye approach of the entire city to determine what our needs are. And then once we have a lot of information, we can package it up, come up with that ballpark figure or whatever it is that we need. Madam Mayor can present it and say, okay, this is the real needs for the city of Mount Vernon. So right now, we're really in the early phases of just assessing the overall infrastructure to see what we need and then present it in a comprehensive
You have to know your assets.
Right.
You have to know exactly what you have. And, in a city this age, a city this old with that much infrastructure, 180 miles of sewers in 4 square miles is a lot of sewers, right? That's a pretty extensive system. But you have to really understand what the assets and liabilities, right? So it's an interesting process. And when we spoke earlier, you're doing it in the right way because when you have geographic information systems, right, GIS, when you can build those assets and that asset management piece on a visual platform. Right, so it's not just you're not just going to hand her a spreadsheet. You're going to have a picture. So she's going to be able to actually see what those assets are and where they are and what condition they are.
And then the other thing is just developing innovative ideas to sustain it going forward. Because once we could rehabilitate the entire system, but like Madam Mayor said, we have to have the skills and our workers to actually maintain it.
What's the path forward?
Exactly.
What's the path forward? Because it's going to take a lot of money to do what we're talking about doing here and what we discussed today. It's going to take a lot of money, but that's going to be wasted money if we don't invest in that human capital, as you said, and that human capital is really at the core of the path forward.
It's a challenge, but we've been hands-on with it, and I always like to give Madam Mayor a lot of credit because she's the one that makes this possible. Like she said, she's been the mother that the city has needed, and she enables her leaders to actually lead as well too. And she teaches us, she can be a mom, boss, whatever we need. And you can call her at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, and she just gives you that good advice on how we can work through these solutions. And I always say her emotional intelligence is unmatched. Like I've never seen it before, where she's able to withstand all the pressure and just deal with it day to day. And I'm dealing with it too, but I know on her
Is
level.
this employee review up soon?
It's the truth though.
But this is a team effort.
Right.
This is a team effort. I'm grateful to every division here in the city for allowing me to come along. I'm not a person who's a micromanager.
Right.
But you can't manage what you don't understand.
Sure.
And they provide me with an opportunity on a regular basis through good times and through crisis to allow me to come along with them. So I've traveled around with the sewer crew. We had 6 sewer incidents happen one night. It just seemed like it was 10:30 at night, and we got calls from the sewer crew, and Damani called me. He's like, "Boss lady, the city's falling apart." And I think it was a Sunday night.
Yeah,
It was a Saturday night. It was a
Yep.
Saturday night, 10:30 at night, and you know, he's a strong guy, but you could hear in his voice that his spirit was cracking because it was overwhelming. And even his staff was tired. When you see staff get so much overtime that they don't want overtime anymore, because it just pulls them away, and it really starts to mess with their quality of life. I got on the phone, we called the county executive. The county executive made some phone calls, and they said in 3 hours, trucks will be coming from New England to meet you. And I think I met our city engineer and our commissioner at about 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. We met on 10th Avenue and 5th Street, and we were looking at charged sewer lines. And we ran around the city and we checked those different 6 areas. And about 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, we got to the last place, and we were flushing out a sewer hole, and a geyser came, and I got hit in the face with the sewer geyser. Right? And so, you know, but again, I asked him, I said, give me the privilege of going around with you, because there are going to be times that I'm sitting at tables that you're not at.
Right.
And you're not going to be there to give me a spreadsheet, to give me a PowerPoint presentation. And if I don't have a personal understanding of our biggest challenges and how we might look at solving them, then we're going to miss opportunities. And so you say, I'm there to support you guys, but you do the work and you provide me with the information so that I can advocate for the city. And that's very humbling that they have the confidence in me. And they really give me that space. And people will say, give you that space, you're the boss, right? But they call me and they say, you know, boss, this is an opportunity.
Right.
If you want to show up, this is what we're dealing
Yes.
with. And we invite you. So they've given me my Timbs, they've given me my emergency response jackets, my helmets, my shovels, and we're on the scene.
Madam Mayor, you are of a great generation of really talented Black women. We call it Black Women Magic this last few years. And one of the things I think about is you have time in front of you. What's the picture you have for Mount Vernon 10 years from now?
10 years from now, we have a Mount Vernon. We have a Mount Vernon where economic development is happening in the center of our city. You've seen, today you saw, you bore witness to the fact that we have a railroad cut in the middle of our city. There's now opportunities through Connecting Communities grant funds from the federal government and the state government to cover that 100-year-old environmental and fiscal red line that goes straight through our city. To really bridge the north and south side so that there is no longer an other side of the tracks.
That would have such an amazing impact.
An amazing economic impact.
Not only economic,
the morale
but also,
of the city, the pride in the city. You know, I grew up and I used to hear on TV all the time, and you'd hear people say, oh, they live on the other side of the tracks. And the other side of the tracks is very real. It's real in Mount Vernon, it's real in Kansas, it's real in Texas, it's real in Boston. And so in 10 years, I want to see a Mount Vernon where the other side of the tracks is eliminated, where every neighborhood, you know, that we have seamless transitions between neighborhoods, that there's not a stark difference from the east side to the west side, from the north side to the south side, where we are working together. Where technology is being utilized, where our decision-making as a government is based on data and not based on political pressure, and looking to be reelected. You know, that cannot be the first goal, is just reelection.
The only goal. Yeah.
The only goal. The goal has to be to make sure that we have a city and a community where everyone knows they have an opportunity. And that people that are young people, what I want for Mount Vernon more than anything is for our young people to consider this is a place that they want to stay and that they want to build their families, that our elders know that if they stay here and they don't choose to move to Florida, that there's opportunity. We want this to be a community that from cradle to grave, our residents know that there is a place for them, there's opportunity for them, and that their community can sustain them and take care of them.
It's wonderful. That's wonderful. I'd like to touch on for a moment, because, I mean, though you haven't preached at all today, you've said a lot, and you've told us a lot, you've provided a lot of information, and you haven't preached, but you are a minister.
Yes, I am.
That normally people don't associate that with elected office, especially elected office at the level you are.
Yes. I'm a minister. I've been an ordained minister now for about 15 years. And I don't do as much pulpit preaching as I kind of do convening of our residents in the community, mentoring, encouraging, more evangelism than anything else. But Mount Vernon, a unique point of history is that we have more churches per square mile than any community in the Northern Hemisphere.
Nice. So this is your ministry.
This is my ministry. It is. The Church of Mount Vernon.
Yes.
The parishioners are the residents here. I love my city. I'm committed to my city, and it's not always easy because, you can get nationwide recognition, but sometimes the people who you live next to every day, because it's so familiar, they don't always recognize or appreciate it. We have our challenges, but I think for the most part that I have great support here in my community, and we're dedicated to doing this work. People are saying, are you doing this just so you could move on? No, I'm doing this because I want to see a difference in my community.
Right. You had an opportunity to move on, but you stayed. You chose to stay.
It's not a stepping stone.
You raised your hand. You said, I got this.
I don't know if I raised my hand. I was voluntold that I was running. They raised it. And so, but we're excited. I'm a minister, and like I said, we work very closely with our faith-based community here. We have some social justice giants who've walked with Martin Luther King here, and they're still present, and they've instilled so much in us here in the city of Mount Vernon. Once again, it's really about loving where you live, and if you love where you live,
that's what it's all about.
Then you're going to serve, and like we said, we just want equity, and we want this to be the place where our young people choose to return home from college and live and raise their families, and a place where our elders know that if they stay. When I was running, they said, well, I don't want to move to Florida. I go to church here. I get my family here. I want to know that there's opportunities for me to stay here. And so that's what we're doing.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And we've had a tremendous day here. It's just, it's not what I expected. Okay, this is my first trip to greater New York area, to Mount Vernon specifically. And Marvin and I, we were toying around on the internet and Googled, and we're looking at some of the people who are from here, which is, it's amazing. It is a tremendously historic community, which is a blessing and a curse, right? So you're blessed by all of these people who have gone on, Denzel Washington, just all of these names that you threw out, that everybody across the country knows these names, right? But also that comes with it all of the issues that we've talked about today, because it is a historic, older community.
Sure.
So all of those, there's a good and bad with that, but I still, the thing that I'll take away from here when I go back to Pittsburgh and I put together all of this that we've talked about today, the thing that I'm going to take away with most is the pride. Okay, and so I'm an old basketball geek, right? I'm an old coach. I played, I coached. When you showed me that picture on your phone, okay, that pride, all right? So now I have to go back to Pittsburgh and tell them they have to change their slogan. They can't beat a city of champions anymore, because this place has the 25 state championships, which is, that is just outrageous. But again, the pride as the mayor, and that's not just because you're the mayor. That's because you're a Mount Vernonite, right?
I'm a Mount Vernonite.
But that is that's the thing that I will walk away with from here, is the pride that all of you and even everybody that we encountered out there on the street today has in this community, despite any negativity that may be going on, any obstacles that are out there, nobody hid from them. When I talked to all of your team, everybody I talked to, yeah, we got this, but here's what we're doing, you know? And that's going to be my takeaway from today.
We are a proud community. We are a resilient community. We have a lot of grit. And I've said, we coined this, that we are the jewel of Westchester. And the only
Go
way
for
that a
it.
jewel is formed, a jewel is
love it.
formed through crushing and through pressure.
Through pressure.
Sure.
Nothing that is valuable has not undergone a crushing and a refining in the fire, and lots of pressure.
Absolutely.
And so we are about to shine, and we're about to shine very brilliantly. And those who don't believe, you better start believing and catch up.
Nobody has, and that's perfect. That's perfect, because nobody has ever succeeded without encountering and overcoming obstacles. Nobody has, right? So I tip my hat to you guys. I mean, you're really doing it right. Yeah, you've got a big job ahead of you, but you got the right people for that job.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you so much. We want to thank your team for coming and looking at our city, understanding some of our challenges, and, you know, being willing to work with us to really find sustainable solutions that we need and that our residents, more importantly, deserve. So thank you so much. We look forward to working with you going forward.
And we love community. That's what we do. You know, we're that firm because all of us, this is in our hearts, right? And we want to invest, we want to get to know the communities where we work. It's not about going into a community. Listen, the problems you have, the solutions are all there. I can tell you right now, there's a solution for every single problem you have. And it's easy to come in here to Mount Vernon, okay, do some design, do some things, collect a check, and then go about to the next program. But that's really not what we do. We do this, we do community, right? And I think that comes from coming from a small community like this, right? And I get it. And that's why I've been so impressed with what you guys are doing, what you're up against, but what you're doing about it. So I think thank you for having us, inviting us. This has been eye-opening and just inspiring to me. It really has. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.